Now I can relax, Dale. I've done
Really?
I've done the tricky bit, right?
All right, so I got to do everything else.
So it's welcome to Cantankerous Old Women number 3 on the gift of perspective. And I'm going to hand over to Dale to start the ball rolling.
Thank you. And I have to be honest. I mean, we had this conversation earlier. Neither of us can remember, because it's been such a big gap, why we thought this was a great idea. But it is a great idea. And in usual cantankerous old women style, I had a really, really crap night last night. I was deep in a dream. It was like a really active dream. Like I knew I was doing things and talking, and then both my dogs stood up and started barking, right? And Marley, who's really old, who's not very fast, somehow leapt off the bed, rushed out onto the terrace, continued barking, and I'm lying there going, I'm sleeping, I'm not going to wake up. So I didn't sleep, my plan failed. And actually I ended up when I kind of really surfaced, feeling like a bloody cantankerous old woman and really pissed off with life and thinking, I have had enough of this. I need my beauty sleep. But what was really interesting, and I guess a lot of people having perspective has a lot to do with like health and sleep and mood. I was not a happy bunny when I leaded them up this morning and got them out the house, but I wandered down the little path. And like I said, Marley is, she's old and ploddy, and so I was waiting for her in a field. So the field has lots of almond trees. They're all white except for one, which is pink. I don't know why that's relevant, but I obviously needed to say it. But I stopped, right? So I'm cranky. I've had enough of the world. I do not want to be out walking. And I stopped and I closed my eyes, and just coming through the trees was the sun, right? Beautiful blue sky. The birds were singing. I had all the senses, the smell of the blossom. And the blossom was starting to fall, so it looked like snow. Oh, I tell you what, in that moment, I'm talking about the gifts of perspective. It's just to reframe. I just stood there and I waited for it to, plod up to mummy. And I thought, it ain't so bad, is it? And I think, and I don't know if it is an age thing where you can reframe. I will click. You can reframe a lot quicker than when you're younger. I don't know, maybe it's based on personality or whatever, but it was just like in that moment, I just thought, it's one night. It's not that bad, surely. But I have felt all day today that if somebody, I haven't seen anyone, but if somebody said something, or actually someone did say something, but I wouldn't have that ability to kind of rise above. And so, and it's interesting because I took them for a walk when I came back from Spanish, and one of my neighbours said to me, as she always does, my dog is fat. And I've explained to her time and time and time again, she doesn't get much food, she's old. And I say, maybe it's her hormones. Maybe she's menopausal. I mean, she's probably like 80 or something, Marley, by now. She can't possibly be. But I was looking at this woman and I thought, you're telling me my dog is fat. Have you actually looked in the mirror? And I thought, if that had been a British person and I knew a way of saying, like I would have said that. Have you looked in the bloody mirror? It's like, don't call my dog fat. Look at you. And I thought, gift of perspective. Just like, she's making conversation. Look at it in a different light. But I think we do that sometimes when we're feeling like cranky and whatever. It's very difficult to see things in a good light and reframe. And I just thought, if it was a British person, because obviously I can speak a lot faster in English than I can in Spanish, I might have not bitten my tongue. Instead, you know, I did a reframe again and I smiled and I went on my way. But as I walked into the Rambler, I actually wanted to cry. It was like, people are so judgmental. You know, instead of stopping and pausing and looking at things from lots of different angles, they judge. And it's like, and actually, that's a really, for me, that's a really, really good kind of starting point, because I think as I've got older, I know I just said something about my neighbour, but I am less judgmental. And I think that does come with age, that ability to stop. You know, you can still think it, but I believe I'm less judgmental, more accepting of people, more accepting of life, more accepting of things going wrong. It's like, it's gonna, you know, stuff's gone wrong. Instead of beating yourself up too much, is looking at it in a different way and really appreciating, if you can, the gift of whatever that thing is that it's given you. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Well, it's really funny because while you've been talking and I was thinking, I know what I wanted to say next, but something else has popped up. I'm a Libran. Like, Librans are born with this. Well, this is my experience of being a Libran, is that I have to find all the perspectives. It's like everything has to be balanced.
Yeah.
Lots of other people don't like that. They want to say, that person is really annoying me over there because of da 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 da.
Yeah.
And if I say, yeah, but what if they've had a bad night's sleep? Or, you know, they go, oh, shut up. They don't like they don't like that gift of perspective. So it's been really, really interesting. But I think the more that I reflect on myself, the easier it is for me to shift my perspective. And my illustration, my first illustration, was about when I set up the Changing Times magazine in 2004, I think it was. Wow, 20 years ago. That's ridiculous. I don't know how it can be 20 years ago, but anyway, it was. I set up a magazine with my partner who was living with me then, who was a fantastic artist, a graphic designer, and it was just, you know, he was just brilliant as my business partner. Not so brilliant as a partner, but as a business partner, was great. And so he did all the graphics, and so we created this amazing magazine. But we created it because we needed and wanted to make some money. We were absolutely down on our uppers, as they say. And about 18 months later, it became really clear, I think it was that, a couple of years, anyway, however long, that it wasn't making money. And I got halfway through a month, we were just getting ready to get the next print run sorted. And I realized we weren't going to make it. We didn't have the money to pay for the printing. We didn't have the money to pay the sales, you know, the advertising salesperson. And we just run it into the ground, and it was gone. It had no solvency, and it was really shocking. I mean, I knew it was coming. I just kind of ignored it and thought somehow I would magically turn it around, and I didn't. But at that point, I thought, I failed. I failed. You know, there's this beautiful magazine and it's failed. And it took me quite a while to get a different perspective, because I'd set it up initially with the idea, the goal that it would make money. When it didn't, it was a failure. But I didn't look at that point at all the other things that it had done. And I remember having lunch with someone, I can't remember who, and he said, please don't ever think that it was a failure. You reached thousands and thousands of people with really valuable information and shared so much with them. That can never be deemed a failure. But it took me years, probably, before I could accept that there was a different perspective. And, you know, I was thinking about this yesterday and thinking, well, what did I get from the magazine other than the fact that I ran out of money? And I wouldn't have met half the people that I met. It opened doors. It gave me immense opportunities, and it connected me with people who've been pretty instrumental in my life. And I've interviewed for the Silver Tent, and I don't think I would be running the Silver Tent if I hadn't had that magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite an amazing thought and an amazing way to reframe it. So yeah, so I think the gift of perspective is definitely a gift. And I've got a little afternoon one. You had your morning one with Nothing a Shabby Night. I wanted to take Kiala out on the beach. We haven't been on the beach for a month. And I thought, I'll just catch the tide. And it had been raining all morning really badly. We walked out, sunshine, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But the tide was slightly wrong for me to get onto the big beach where she could really run. And I was so grumpy about that. I got my feet wet and my jeans wet, and she got wetter than she usually does. And then I met up chatting to this other guy with some dogs, and I said, I think it's low tide in about an hour, isn't it? But that doesn't give me enough time because I've got to get back for this call. He said, no, high tide's an hour. And I thought, wow, I was out by an hour, Dale. If I had got through, I wouldn't have got back in time for this call because I couldn't, because the tide, I would have missed the tide. I would have had to have gone a completely different route to get back.
Oh, how funny.
So having gone from grumpy, it was like, wow, that was really lucky. Completely different perspective. Like, thank you.
You know, that nothing to do with the beach, but that kind of like near miss. Like I know I live up a valley, a mountain, and sometimes, and I've never had this anywhere else in the world that I have lived, I'll be driving up or down the mountain and somebody will be on my side of the road. And it's really, really scary when you're driving along and it's a narrow road and either side of you is like, you know, there's a big dip down there. And in that moment, you're watching it happen. And then you either swerve out the way or they've done it. And then there's like, for me, there's like this piece that descends that says, you know, that was a near miss. Like what would have happened had they just not seen me and carried on driving into me? And I don't even have the ability to scream at them. You know, like years ago, you'd have been driving somewhere. I think we've had this conversation before because I think you have a bit of a road rage thing, don't you? Whereas I just go, I might, no, not you, you know, I might just put on the finger where they can't see it. But that I think is for me, that's definitely an older thing. It's like, what's the point in screaming and shout about anything, you know, whether it's a near miss or you might have never got back because you got caught by the tide. And it's like, it's happened. I think that's the point of it. It's happened. There's nothing I can do about it. You know, I can't turn my car around and chase the driver down and stop and say, do you realize you were almost going to kill me? I think perspective for me is about just taking those moments to go, well, it didn't happen. Because we get so bloody cross at things and I can't see the point anymore. I do get cross at stuff, but it's like, I can't see the point. Like, why, you know, why get angry about something that you can't do anything about? You know, like your business that you've talked about, you know, I can just imagine how you felt, you know, all those emotions erupting, but it's done.
And it's just reminded me.
Go on.
Because I was just looking at that moment of perspective. But let's rewind maybe a fortnight, 3 weeks from that point where I knew I'd lost the magazine. And I'd been invited to a meeting with a team of people that had funding behind them. and were setting up an online community, and that had similar ethos to the changing times. And I went along and I had just the best meeting. I absolutely loved them. They were all getting paid to be part of the team. And they weren't creating a magazine, so there was absolutely no conflict of interest. And I just loved what they were doing. I thought they were really interesting, exciting people, and it was a really inspirational project. And when I left there, I had to drive out of London to go and see them. As I was leaving, I thought, I would love to be part of that team, but I can't be because I have a full-time commitment to the changing times. So 2 to 3 weeks later, I lose the changing times. I'm sitting there, not with any gift of perspective, I am a failure again, and wondering how on earth I was going to survive. And I got a call, and I got a call from one of the guys at the team. They didn't know that I'd just lost the magazine. And he said, I'm ringing up because we would really love you to be part of our team.
That's Jack.
Say that again. And we would really love you to be part of our team, but we don't know if you can do it because of the changing times. So it's like, is this a paid job? Yeah. Like, oh, what? Like the timing. So it's not just that there was a gift of perspective on the loss of the changing times, that I didn't have to see it as a failure, but that actually there was this next big step up into a much bigger project that had funding behind it, that allowed me to use the skills that I'd been learning and the contacts that I'd been making, the connections that I'd been forging through the changing times, use them in a different way, which built and built. And that didn't survive either, but I had a really good 18 months there.
Yeah.
So financially, that didn't survive, but the learning curve was absolutely amazing. And I was working on building an online community. So again, without those two stepping stones, would I have ever founded the Silver Tent? Probably not. So it's like I can now look at things when things go apparently wrong. Often my perspective is, well, there's something else coming. That this isn't necessarily wrong. This might be completely perfect. So that shift from the perspective, I'm trying not to spit here. I am discovering I'm spitting more as I get older.
Apparently you'll dribble next.
Oh no, I do that too. But oh, the joy.
You need a beautiful set of embroidered handkerchiefs so you can just. So I've got all this to come, have I? The dribbles.
Oh, I'm sure. But you could change it. I can hear Vanessa saying, change the narrative, Francesca, change the narrative.
Yeah, funny.
But yeah, so I think that shift of perspective from getting something wrong, failing, whatever it might be, to there is another opportunity. They say, don't they, when one door closes, another one opens, and it's surprisingly true.
It is. I remember donkeys years ago. I was working in IT as marketing manager, so corporate marketing manager, and I'd been enticed by the MD to come and work at his company to do some stuff, implement CRM and sort out their marketing. What I didn't know was that he was going to leave the organization within a period of time. So I left a job, joined the company, and I was at a conference when someone rang me to say, just to let you know, blah, 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 has left. He's left, a bit like Elvis, he left the building. And I thought, what? Like, I've been here 6 months, and no, I think I've been there 9 months. And like, why did he offer me a job to work closely with him, great salary, and then he's going to bugger off? And I came into the office and I had this intuitive sense that the new MD, who was the finance director, wouldn't be keeping me on. So what I did over that week is every night I took my stuff home, cleaned up my hard drive, took my stuff home, and I was very, very upset, even though I knew it was coming, when the following week it was like, well, we don't actually need marketing in our business. And it's like, so I got a little carrier bag, because that's all there was left, and I left the building. And I had a little bright blue MG, and I got in, I put the roof down, I think it was Nirvana, I gave them that as I left, and I was very upset that I had the music blasting away. And I got home and I fell to pieces. I'd never been made redundant before in my life. My career had gone like that. And like, I felt absolutely, well, what was I going to do? And how did they not see my brilliance? How could they do that to me, And I think a week later, the head gasket on my car went, and it was a month out of warranty, right? So I had no money, no freaking car. And I remember thinking, I just, what has happened? Like, how did this, this is not my beautiful life. And I made a decision. I'd been on some IT, but like you joined that group of people. I'd been on some boards to do with a whole load of IT stuff. And I rang the university that was running the project and I said, I'm afraid I can't attend any more meetings. I've been made redundant, and it would be wrong for me to represent, because I'm not representing a company. And they went, oh, great, you can come and do marketing for us. And that literally, I went off and did their marketing for them for a period of time. And then got my car fixed, and I think I must have worked for them for about 6 months, and it was great. I loved the whole, university setting, and it was wonderful, and I was so delighted to have that. So got my car fixed, and then I was going to go for a consultancy role, working, because in Wales, they have business initiatives, and consultants go out and do various things. And I don't know how I had the balls to do it. I rang the chief exec to ask him if he needed any consultants, right? The next thing I knew, I had an interview with their director. Went to get in my car, it didn't work, it stopped. And I'm stood there and I thought, what do I do? It's like, everything's falling apart again. So I rang her up and I said, look, I'm going to walk down to the local garage. They're going to fix my car and I'll be with you later. Can I turn up anytime I like? And she said, yeah. And it was like, wow, and when we're talking about perspective, and actually it's all about reframe. Look at something from a different point of view. I have no idea. I'm not sure I'd ever ring the chief exec of a big organization to say, have you got a job, please? But at the time, it just seemed like the most natural thing to do is to kind of like step into that space and think, he might need a consultant, see it from his point of view and just do it. And I look back on, it was a horrible time. It really, really was awful. I remember, this bloody car. In the end, I went and bought a car off the forecourt, so it had been a show car. So I bought a brand new car. But I remember pouring with rain, and I'd driven from a networking meeting. It'd been in the evening, and I was coming into Bridgend. I'd got off the motorway, and I was coming downhill. The bloody thing broke down again. And I sat outside someone's house, and I cried and cried and cried. And this little old lady came out and said, would you like a cup of tea? And all of a sudden it was like, it might be bloody raining. She's offered me a cup of tea. I'm just going to, I'm going to walk home and sort things out. And I think like sitting here now, like with you, I think that's got to be like 20 or 30 years ago. Actually, there's such great lessons in who we are. And I think when we're sat feeling like I don't feel particularly brilliant today, actually look, you know, this is a great conversation for me, because I'm looking back on that and I'm going, actually, you know, I've done some amazing things, and I should celebrate that. I should look at it with a different viewpoint. You know, it's like I was saying to you earlier, you know, I'd been book coaching for 13 years and stuff happened and I just couldn't do it anymore. I think what it was is I was doing more writing for other people and I didn't enjoy that. I loved what's your idea? Let's get the idea out. Let's change the world with your idea. And I'd lost all of that. It'd become a drudge. And I would say for the last 18 months, I have felt like a complete failure. So I've taken on some part-time stuff, which I do really, really enjoy. But I'd lost my why, my motivation, my everything. And I did not want, right? So this is a very interesting point of perspective. I did not want to be called a book coach. Everyone's a book coach. Do not want to be called. No, no. And I was ill. I think the reason we cancelled the last one was I'd come down with this flu, bug, lurgy, fever, cough, cold, and I was ill for 7 weeks, really, really unwell. I couldn't work, I couldn't do it, I couldn't think, couldn't speak, forced to rest, just absolutely horrible. And I'd been following a pathway that I thought I wanted to go. I thought, I've done all these things all over my life. This is the path I'm meant to be on. And being completely shut down, I had a chance to sit and reflect. And it's stuck, what do they call it? Stuck in your craw? Is it in your craw? And I didn't want to be a book coach. It was like, I'm not being a book coach. And then I looked at it and I thought, there must be so many people who don't want to write a book, but could write a content-rich journal. But I'm not going to call myself a book. I'm going to be a journal coach. And something flipped. It's like, it's book coaching, but by another name. And I thought, and I have struggled with it. I have so struggled with this feeling of failure, of kind of shutting myself down, not wanting to do something that actually I do adore, and calling myself something else, shortening the project and using all my marketing skills to help. And I just thought, oh, well, there we go then, young lady. You're seeing, so all those gifts of things I can do and things that I love, all I've done is go, let's turn that around and look at it from a different light and go and step into the gift of all of that shit that has gone on for like the last 18 months for me. And truly it is, for me, it is a gift, because like every time my mum said, you know, but that's what you do. And it's like, no, I don't. No, I don't. Don't speak to, I'm not playing this game. No, I don't. And now I'm like, yeah, I love it. So I've just been designing some stuff and I'm going to my computer and I'm going, oh my goodness me, look at all those things I've got that I can use and I feel like a different person. It's like you said, it's not a failure. Look at all those gifts. And I honestly, Francesca, I could not see it. I was so steeped in this kind of like self-hatred and this, I failed, and like, what am I going to do with my life? And what was the point of anyone putting me on this planet? You know, there's all this stuff going on and I don't know who I am. And it's like, no, actually, you're the same person you've always been. You've just shifted your perspective. You know, you've stood at the top of a mountain and you've looked out and gone, oh yeah.
It's so brilliant, isn't it? That it's instant, but we have to activate it, don't we? And you know, it's so easy to get stuck in I'm a failure, I'm rubbish, life sucks, life is, you know, horrible to me, and seeing oneself as a victim and having absolutely no power, and I can't change that, I can't do anything about it, I'm too ill, whatever it might be. But actually, it seems that it's like that's a narrow perspective, isn't it? And then it locks you into being powerless and incapable to change things. But if all you have to do is change a perspective, and then life appears to change following that perspective, that maybe that makes it different. That, oh, I don't have to change my life, I just need to change this perspective, and then the rest will kind of, you know, like the domino effect will happen. And you know, a similar thing happened to me when I was only laid out for a fortnight, not for 7 weeks. But again, like you, it stopped me thinking. I couldn't think, and it gave my brain such a rest, apart from hearing myself say, I've got so much to do. You were supposed to be launching all these courses and everything now. Like, I can't leave it till I'm better. Of course, I have left it until I was better, of course. But the richness and the understanding that I got from having that, like, really fallow time for a fortnight actually was invaluable. The not being able to think, instead of being, I've just wasted 2 weeks of my life, was really rich, and far from being a waste. I mean, like, ridiculously far from being a waste. And you know, I would love to hear from those watching this, whether they're watching live now in the Silver Tent on this Facebook Live, or whether they're watching the recording. I'd love to hear from people who feel either stuck in a perspective, and they'd love an input from other people who can go, well, you could look at it like this. It'd be very Libyan. You can look at it like this, or like this, or like this. But you have to be open, don't you? You know, the number of times I've locked myself into a perspective, and other people have gone, well, how about looking at it like this? And I just want to tell them where to go.
And me the same, because it feels like someone is saying, you should, I hate the should word, you should do this. And it's like, don't tell me what to do. Yeah. So yeah, but we make those choices to, like you just called it, to lock yourself into this really narrow path where actually you can't see anything, because all you can see is like a few steps ahead, and there's a door in front of it, and it's like, how do I get through the door? Well, I don't know. It's like, why do you do this?
And it's really interesting. I can hear myself in the past, and you know, and sometimes still now, that if I'm not ready to shift perspective and somebody else is trying to get to shift perspective, I will try and prove to them that I am right and there is nothing I can do about it. And I've got Vanessa and Jeanette, you know, in my imagination, just laughing at me now. So I guess we have to be ready, don't we? We have to be willing to give up our need to be right and righteous about being
judged. But it's judged as well, isn't it? Because if you've been something that people see you as, you know, that's their view of you, that's what you do, that's how you show up, and then you don't do any of those things and you go and do something else and that doesn't work out, and you think, well, actually I'll go back to something, and there's that worry that people will judge you, so you stay small. And actually, you know, a bit like the blue car scenario, I just thought, I'm just going to get on and do it. And I've held myself, like you've said, in this kind of stasis, in this waiting station, and thinking there's no way out. You know, there's all these bars around me, because isn't there a a thing. I'm seeing a picture of a gate and someone can't get out, and actually the lock is, and all you have to do is push the
It's an Osho's then tarot card
That's it.
of a
Yeah.
little person, and this side of the gate, it does look like there's chains around the gate and the padlock, and it looks really like there's no way they're ever going to get through that gate. Little tiny person, and this side of the gate is all grey, and on the other side it's all colourful and beautiful. But when you look really closely, the padlock isn't shut.
That picture came straight in my mind, and I think we do that a lot. So we're in the grey space and we can't get over there because we're not willing to change our perspective and just go, oh, look, we can actually just do it. It's got nothing to do with anything.
I'm just getting this brilliant sense of being really stubborn. Like, I'm not changing my perspective. I'm digging in my feet. I am going to show you that life is intolerable and I am completely powerless. That's like the only person that hurts.
Wow.
Yes. Why would you want to stay there? Why would you want to really prove beyond a shadow of a doubt?
But maybe there's a purpose to purgatory. Maybe there's a purpose to it, that like divine timing, we have to sit in that dirty, mucky, smelly hole of self-reproach. Thought I'm waxing lyrical today. I don't know how my brain is doing it, but sit in that self-reproach. And maybe it's like it's the void, and actually the void is good. And we, it serves a purpose, because it makes us go back and say, well, what's my why? What's my purpose? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I being this way? And I actually, truly, I think it's very brave to change your mind and see things from a different perspective. It's very courageous. Like if someone has said something to you and you go, no. Don't you dare tell me what to do. And then you sleep on it and you journaled on it and you meditated on it and, you've gone to the top of the mountain and you go, actually they were right. And there's quite a lot of bravery in coming back and going, you told me that thing and I said it's a load of rubbish, and well actually I think it's a brilliant idea and I'm so glad that you opened my eyes to it. And it's like, oh dear God, but it's just, that's who we are as humans, isn't it? It's just, we are made of so many bits of whatever. I'm going to blame it on my parents. I can blame sorry, Mum, I don't blame it on my parents.
I blame it on the universe. We've got some feedback. We've got some comments. There's a comment from Jan Betsing, I'm not quite sure how to say that name, and she says, our self-talk has to be positive, yet I put myself down and lack confidence so often. A good self-image and confidence is so important. And then she carries on to say, we need encouragers. I so agree with you, Jan.
Absolutely.
The tent is a place of encouragers. And she says, I wish I had a best friend and we encourage each other.
Oh, yes.
I know the feeling, but you can do it yourself. Like I'll often say, I chat to myself actually as if I'm my best friend some of the time. Even though I feel really awful and I feel really fat and I feel really old, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a surprisingly brilliant time.
Yes.
And Jan, I tell you what, that works for me every single time. If I'm, whatever I'm feeling, fill in the blanks. And then we've got a comment from Conchetta. She says, so amazing. I'm resonating with your experience as I've been having a similar experience over the last couple of years. It's been necessary to constantly remind myself that there are other perspectives, as I was unwilling to be consumed by my shadow side messages. So yeah, it's really wonderful. Thank you, both of you, for for sharing your comments and your thoughts and feelings.
Like the best friend thing, I when I was younger, I like many women, when I was younger, I was stick thin, thought I was terribly fat, you know, spent so long hiding myself and hiding my body, and then, you know, you abuse yourself with how you eat and drink and all of those things. And like having gone through, and people will have heard the story, you know, I have my spine fractured, my body changed shape. What I do now, it's going to sound a bit strange, I've got a mirror at the bottom of my stairs, and I spent so many years never looking in a mirror because I didn't like what I saw. And you know, when you've got men in your life and they say things about you, a bit like the Spanish lady. I remember having a partner who was a big, large person who made comments about my body, and I'm like, how dare you? Because, like, you know, you're rather rotund, and I'm actually quite skinny, but I didn't see that. So what I do now is, no matter what I look like when I get out of bed, and you know, all of us, you know, we've had one of those nights and your hair's all like that, and you know, you're like, whoops, oh whoops, my beautiful hairstyle. I've put a brush on the railing by the mirror. I make myself stop every day and remind myself I am beautiful. And it's something I do now every single day. I come down, I look, and I go, yeah, right. And it's like, and I laugh. Like it's like, oh yeah, you know, because I often, even if I've had a shower, I often forget that I'm supposed to brush my hair before I go out to see the world. You know, I'll get out of bed and, you know, I'll go and get, you know, tie my hair up, go and get a shower, brush my teeth, and take the girls out. And I think, oh my God, I've got like bed head, and look, I don't see anybody. But that self-talk thing is massively important, I think, when you're getting older, because like we've all got wrinkles and lines and bits and whatever. And we, at some point in our life, you know, we can't still be that, you know, I think of Janice Ian's song at 17, you know, nobody loved me. And I really, you know, I really resonated with that song. And it was like, I was the ugly duckling and no one loved me. And you can't live in that space forever. It's like, we're all going to get old. We're all going to get saggy arms and bat wings and fat tummies and stuff. It's like, this is what I look like. This is what I look like. Embrace it. Change how you feel about yourself. You know, I looked in the mirror this morning and I'm like, that is a horrible picture. No, 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 you're gorgeous. You're gorgeous. Brush your hair, go out and walk the girls. And I think this, you know, this conversation is so amazing because there's so many things that we, you know, that we can talk about. You know, I know when my spine fractured and my spine went like that, and my stomach came up under here, and you know, I still haven't lost this strange stomach. You know, my washboard stomach isn't. I can't do the exercises anymore. But standing, looking in the mirror, I did not love what I saw. But what I did instead is when I always get so bloody emotional. What I did instead is when I put cream on my body, I thanked my body for helping me to heal. And that's like, I couldn't look at myself and see anything beautiful. All I could see was this rounded, hunched, you know, it just was horrible. But I just kept saying to my body, thank you for helping me to heal. Thank you for helping me to heal. And that change of perspective, I mean, I can't even tell you how hard it was. You know, like you lose all your muscle tone, everything. It's just like, who is that? What is? And now I just think, I've had a fractured spine. You know, I can't imagine my body ever going back to pre-fractured. But actually, look at she's done. Look at she's done. She knows how to heal. okay, you know, I ate all the right food and took the right supplements, and, you know, saw people, you know, it's like I spent all my savings on healing my body. I couldn't work for 18 months. And I didn't want to tell anybody that I was so ill. So I made out that I was okay, but I spent all my savings. And I remember sitting there thinking, shit, I was going to use that money to do X, Y, Z. And then I thought, it's a rainy day pot to make me better. And once I'd changed the way I thought about that was my safety and my security, and I had no choice. You know, Spanish government were going to pay me to stay at home and lie on my back while I healed. And it was like, that was such a big thing to go, oh, my pot of money, I have nothing now by the end of it, because I spent it on, you know, going to see a cranial osteopath, and I spent it on all sorts of things to heal my body.
It's so fascinating, isn't it? Because you changed your perspective on that pot of money, and yet you had it. Like where I go is, what if you hadn't had that?
Oh God, I know.
Oh, I mean that's well, you would have done something else, but you know, it's quite a horrifying thought. And that whole thing about loving oneself, we've got a comment here that I want to play with, but from Lisa Lowy, and she says, I quite often feel ugly, but my partner says, hello, beautiful to me.
Oh,
how lovely that is. And you know, I've talked recently about, you know, sending myself love, being really loving to myself. And people often go, oh, how do you do that? You know, I've got these pudgy knees and this, that, and the other. I've got pudgy everything, you know. But what I discovered is I can love me, not I just bypass my body. No, I'm sorry, I don't want to bypass my body, but I can love me, regardless, and me who's inside,
that's
who's
right.
inhabiting this body, and not that body, this body. And that makes a huge difference. I started doing that when I was feeling unwell, lying on the sofa, and I started to imagine writing love on my toes. And then I was drawing hearts all the way in my imagination up my legs, and you know, here, there, and everywhere. It's really interesting. Little hearts everywhere. And it was like I felt this warm blanket of love start wrapping itself around me. And it had nothing to do with the shape of my body, the number of fat cells under my skin. It didn't have anything to do with that at all. Just this deep love for me.
Yeah.
Me, not my body. And I don't mean that I'm not trying to love my body too. Of course I am. But there's a distinction. And I would say, Lisa, that rather than make it about your skin deep essence, is go for your essence. Start really loving you, the essence of you. And I feel like that will start radiating out through your skin, and it will start to shift your perspective of your physical aspect. But we are all so much more than our bodies. But we're not often told that, are we? We're taught that we are our body.
We are.
Not. It's this extraordinary creature that we're inhabiting, a bit like the guy in Avatar when he discovers that he's woken up and he's suddenly got this incredible, you know, blue body that can leap tall buildings in a single thing, you know. Suddenly he's got this different creature that he's inhabiting, and life just takes a completely different trajectory. But he is still intact inside. He's still him.
And that's it, isn't it?
You know, yeah. And I think that loving ourselves, if we can start with that, if we feel that we can't love this, then go deeper. And That's been just amazing for me to get that. So I'm just checking for more messages here.
So,
Brilliant, Lisa, thank you. I'm delighted. Let us know how you get on trying that. It's great.
so one of my biggest things in life was learning to love myself, because I heard so many negative messages. And when my spine fractured, that really was a time where I'd learnt to love me, and then I had all these difficulties. And I would say to myself, do I love myself enough to do whatever it need, whatever it takes? Do I love myself enough? And and it's like, yes, I do. I love myself enough that whatever I needed to do, and I just did it. And actually, that's a really good reminder for me today, because I'd forgotten how much I used to say, do I love myself enough to do that? Do I love myself enough to do that? And actually, I do. So what other, I want to do something before we finish and before you take any more messages.
Okay.
And I can't remember when you did this, but I bought a 3-month gift for the Silver Synergy, right? And I think you called it the Gifts of Love, because we're talking about love,
Yes.
right? And because I was ill and whatever, I forgot to give it away. And so this morning, when I went on my phone, the first person I saw in the Silver Tent message was Miriam. So Miriam, if you would like, I don't know, she's not in Silver Synergy, is she? Miriam, if you'd like a gift of love from me to you, 3 months membership to Silver Synergy, it's yours.
You might need to say her surname.
I can't. I can't say it. I can only
I think I know who you are.
It begins with a R.
Well, I think it's rising, but it might not be.
I have no idea.
I hope I got that right.
But actually, he is such a beautiful soul, because I just went in the Silver Tent this morning and I thought, whoever's name I see, this is who's going to get it. But it was also such a beautiful story that I keep meaning to go back in. And Miriam, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you were reading your aunt's autobiography and you were talking about stuff about your family. And I just thought, yeah, she's my gal. So from my heart to yours, you have a gift. So let's get back on track. I needed to do it. I needed to give it away. And it's like, I found the perfect person.
Wow, that's so lovely. Miriam, it'll be lovely to see you in Silver Synergy. Yes, we do have yes, Miriam Wright. Did I said it right? Did I, Steffi? Miriam Wright, I think. So we've got a message from Shakura. He says, I'm very busy and being very gentle in falling in love with myself again and again. I'm soon to be 70 and I thought I was doing this before. Such a shock to realize how mean I have been to me. Oh, bless you, Shakura. I know exactly what you mean. And that is, it's quite shocking, isn't it, when we realize what unpleasantness and judgment that we've heaped upon ourselves. And from Linda Waters, I tell myself if it was not sent or said with love, I release it and let it go. Doesn't matter if it was from me or someone else. That's just really lovely.
That's hard to do sometimes, though. I'd love to be that honourable, but sometimes I can't. But I think that'll be my work in progress, to let things go in love.
And that there's so much of perspective in there as well, isn't there? That not giving ourselves a hard time. I just want to share this.
Go on.
Wow. So quite a few of you know that I used to care for my mum, and here in this house where I'm living now. And the last 6 months or more began to be more and more difficult. She was really easy most of the time. And she'd been in a care home, and then she came home for a weekend. And when I took her back, they tested for COVID, and they said it was positive. I was very angry. I was unbelievably tired. She'd got to the point where at night she had no concept of time passing. And I had a little bell in my bedroom, and she could press a buzzer in her room and she could wake me up. And she woke me up every 20 minutes
Oh my gosh.
over 3 nights. And I was beside myself with fatigue. So when they told me that I couldn't leave her, I couldn't drop her off, I had to bring her home, I was like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to handle it. I do not know how I'm going to handle it. And it got worse and worse and worse, and I did not handle it well. And there was one particular night where I just was awful. And I couldn't be there for her. I just didn't have the capacity. And it was a few days later that she died. But I got in touch with my sister, and I felt so guilty about this. I've been back over and over again thinking I was tired, but it doesn't kind of let me off the hook, couldn't let go of that guilt. And my sister came down, and she took over, and I desperately needed it. And I didn't realize how much that guilt had been hanging around my neck. And I went and visited it again just the other day. And I got this completely different perspective. Oh my God, Dale. It was quite incredible. Instead of the perspective of what a bad job I'd done, what a horrible daughter I was to have, I lost my temper. I shouted at her, like, it was horrible. And she was having a really tough time. And it's like, it's really hard to admit that, I want to be a really loving, lovely person 24 hours a day. Anyway, the perspective shifted, because if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have contacted my sister, because I wouldn't have needed to. And she would have been in London.
Oh.
My mum transitioned, unzipped her human suit, and stepped through into her next big adventure. And my mum would have wanted us both here.
So perfect. It was meant to be.
And I thought, I think that all happened for perfect reasons, and I can take that guilt off my shoulders and go, that's what needed to happen in order to have both of us here. And it was,
Oh, I've got goosebumps. It's like your mum planned it. Oh,
yeah, exactly. Like she was really pushing every single button.
yes.
Because she didn't know how to ask for that. That was her method of communication. And being able to shift that perspective from guilt, from being a shitty daughter, all of that to, wow, that had to happen because I needed to get my sister here.
That's incredible.
Wow, massive, absolutely massive. Oh, we've got another message here from Jan again. We do have to be gentle with ourselves, don't we? We tend to be hard on ourselves. I love watching Ted Lasso and learning a lot from him. I don't know him. They lost a soccer game, and he said, feel sad for like 2 minutes and then move forward. We all need to keep moving forward, don't we? One step at a time. Yes, Jan, sometimes I have to go, and then I'll fine.
A friend of mine, Bobby, says, give yourself, and I can't remember what the time is, of time frame of allowing yourself to be angry or wallow in it. And she then, you've done your bit of and then get on with it. And that's pretty much what you've just said, is allow yourself to go, I'm gonna poke myself in the eye for a couple of seconds, and then I'm going to get on with life.
And children do that naturally. I remember going, walking behind a mother and her little child, toddler, and they were going to a school, presumably to pick up an older child. And I watched this, I was just walking behind them, and I suddenly saw the little boy, I think, and he went, I was seeing him from behind, he went, and then he did it again. And then again. and then carried on walking. And I thought, wow, he was just letting something go. Then he's just like shaking it out of his body, and
It's
his
before.
mum didn't break stride, right? It was like, wow.
So when did we learn to hold on to shit and carry it every day, every night, and through the week? When are we going to step back in our little kiddie shoes, have those temper tantrums for 5 minutes, and then crack on?
So on that note, on the note of give yourself a 5 minute or 2 minute temper tantrum and then move on, send yourself some absolutely gorgeous love, shift your perspective, and we'll say goodbye. It's just been a great conversation.
Oh, this has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
So I'm going to stop recording on Zoom. Goodbye to Zoom.